All right, well, I'll call the meeting to order at 9 o'clock on Monday, January 30th. Do
Second.
I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Okay, I know we have a tight meeting here and we have Jennifer, our finance director here. Now, Jennifer, I hadn't gotten the more information I asked for in the indirect costs, so I wasn't able to complete our budget.
It was the last spreadsheet. The spreadsheet that you were looking for was the last one on the packet that was sent out.
I didn't see it. I'm sorry, I didn't, what Brenda sent out, it was just one page that I got.
No, I sent out like 3 or 4 pages.
No, what came through to me was just the one page, which was the personnel costs.
Okay.
Okay.
Brenda,
Well, I
can you share your screen?
1 second. Let me just
Okay.
promote here.
Oh, and then I'll share mine. All right, you're gonna have to bear with me because this isn't my forte.
Hold on 1 second. I have
Can't
it.
Zoom.
All right.
I
Chris,
have
did you
it.
get the full packet?
I did. This was sent out last Thursday from Brenda. and,
Yeah.
it's a 5-page.
No.
Hold on. I'm going to,
I wish you would have answered my email on Friday to tell me it was there.
Yeah,
there were several pages, Lee.
Well, there were several pages, and the last page was the indirect cost of one page. Because
Correct.
it was all the, and it was just the one page from the Excel spreadsheet. I didn't get the whole spreadsheet.
that
I
is the,
got-
okay. Sorry.
I think what she's looking for, Jennifer, is the template with the breakdown, the Excel spreadsheet template.
Okay, I gave the whole breakdown of the percentages of town manager, chief technology officer. I
No,
have
I'm
it in
looking
front of
for
me.
the other pages from the spreadsheet.
I'll give you the whole workbook then, if that's what you're looking
That's
for.
it.
So you're looking
That's
for a
what
whole
I'm looking for.
workbook.
Yes,
Okay, I'll forward the whole workbook.
thank you, because that's what I
Welcome.
needed to look, this is just a small.
Well, the
portion.
work, okay.
Yeah, no, I got what you got then, Chris.
Well, okay.
All right, so don't worry about it now. We can't deal with this right now.
Well, I just want to say that the indirect costs did go down almost $60,000. If everybody saw that
I did,
from the spreadsheet. Okay.
but we have I have some other questions about other things in here.
Okay. So does anybody have any questions on the financials that were sent out, or do you want me to go through them, or whatever you want me to do?
Chris, do you have any questions about it?
No.
But I was wondering why the procurement manager her hours, well, no, her salary went up, but she got a huge increase in salary.
Right, so now Michelle is the assistant town manager and that's her salary, and she still does all the procurement, which is a lot of procurement. She does it for the water department. She came in with contracts like this that I had to sign. She pushes all that, it's 0.05. So I upped that a little bit because she does do a lot of work for the water department. I took out the engineer, the indirect cost went down like $60,000. I increased, the Medicare and the health insurance. And that was it. In all the salaries from the finance department have decreased, but she does do a lot of work on procurement. Procurement, I did it in another community, is a lot of work. We have the most strictest procurement laws in the country, and procuring something it takes a long time, and she does all the procurement. So I
You're
thought
talking
that was
about
fair.
for all the contracts for our suppliers that
Yep.
go through the state that we do once a year to get the procurement.
Right.
And it's
She does the
basically
major
a
procurement
contract.
too, so.
All right, so that's the basic contractors we use every year, and we have to go through the standard format. that
You
you've
know,
been
getting
doing
on the
for last couple of
website,
years.
I mean, I'm just, I think
Okay.
I think the indirect costs are fair. I mean, they went
know. I
down
also
$60,000.
noticed,
I don't know what
that
else
there
you want me to
was,
say.
There was a little mistake here in Director of Public Works. It was supposed to be the same as sewer because we discussed this with Brian and we all voted on it and you increased it for some reason. I don't know why.
I increased what?
The Director of Public Works.
I thought that there was a vote to increase it a little bit because the engineer left.
It was to increase it the same as sewer.
Okay, all right, so you want me to increase source to the 0.13, or is it supposed to be the
No,
0.125?
no. It was supposed to be the 0.125. We were point.
So that was, okay, so it
0.12.
might be, all right, so it might be rounding up to 0.13. So do you want me to put it to 0.125?
Well, it's supposed to be the same as sewer. We
Well,
discussed this.
let me ask you this, Lee, what did you vote? Whatever you voted, I'll
We
put it,
voted on the 0.125 because
Okay.
it used to be 0.0125.
I'll put it in as 0.125.
Hi, this is Brian. I just want to say, we're being fair on the town costs. I mean, and the water department, if we really nickel and dime it, which takes a lot of time to do, you would be getting charged a lot more in indirect costs than what is there. I think to try to reduce it even more, whether it's Michelle doing Beechwood Water Main or my hours, is a lot more than what's being charged to the water department.
Okay, Brian, we've been going through this for years. According to the management letter of 2014, we're supposed to have accountability and reconciliation every year. We have never gotten this. We're still working for prior years on reconciliation from things we were overcharged. We discussed this with you, and at the time, I thought you agreed. Did you want more hours now? We can discuss it at this time. About
No, I would
Michelle,
say, I would
this was
depend
just trying
on
to
what
drop
you,
on us.
Lee, I would think it was what you rely on for reconciliation. I see it getting reconciled every year on what's reasonable. But deep diving or logging my hours each day, what's charged to water, what's charged to sewer, that would take a lot more effort.
Okay,
And then
Brian,
that-
we're not asking you to do that. We were just going because you were hardly getting paid. And we said, okay, here, does this sound fair and reasonable? I had this discussion with you a couple weeks ago and you
Right,
said,
Lee, and I
fine.
think it's
That's
fair and
it.
reasonable because I don't wish to talk about it anymore.
Oh.
And so we went fair and reasonable on the low side for the town, and you guys are making out. So to try to reduce it even more, or even belabor the conversation more, if we get down in the weeds, you'll find out that we're undercharging you for indirect costs.
okay, we never got down in the weeds though, because no one ever reconciled it.
Well, that's what we're doing right
And
now.
we're
Is
supposed to be, no, we're not doing this right now. We're supposed to reconcile last year's. We haven't even gotten there yet. As an elected official, I am supposed to be looking out for our customer base. This is all I'm trying to do. I mean, I just can't go, oh, here, we just decided that I saw this big stack of contracts and we should be paying a lot more. This is something new that was added. Okay. I didn't realize that they were getting a huge increase in salary either. That was never told to us. When they
Lee,
said
there's a lot of decrease in salary too. A lot of the finance department, it was
They're
decreased.
new people.
And I agree with Brian, 0.13 is nothing for the water department. We do a lot of work for you all. And the more we talk about this and the more you come in and you meet with us, the more we charge you. Your indirect costs went down $60,000. We're only charging you $113,000, and that is fair. We have to balance the general fund budget on that. I don't know what happened in 2014, and I'm going to talk to the auditors about that, because to come into this and then do a full audit of exactly what was spent at the end of the fiscal year, because it's based on projections, is not fair. So we're going to discuss that at
Okay.
the end of the fiscal year, but for you to do your budget on the 113 435 is completely fair. And I've spent a lot of time on this, and you have the whole breakdown on your spreadsheet of what we're charging you.
Jennifer,
guess that's what I would
talking,
say
excuse
too.
me
I mean,
one second, Brian. Jennifer talking, oh, you went down to 113,000. You took $90,000 off from the employee who's no longer here, okay? And then you added more. So.
But you don't
okay,
look at
we're
all the
fair.
work that
We're
we do for the water commissioners. You just don't look at that. And Brian does a lot of work. Michelle does a lot of work. It takes a lot of time. It's like you have a water enterprise fund. It's a whole separate business entity. So we all have to manage this, the monthly reports and everything. So I'm just saying it's fair, but I'm not going to sit here and argue with everybody. But what I put out, I think, is completely fair.
So let me, I just want to bring this back to a reasonable professional discussion here. We have a tight agenda and I do have to leave at about 9:50, 9:55. So if this requires further discussion, I suggest we do it at another time, but I agree with Jennifer and Brian that this seems very reasonable for what we get for services from the town. So I suggest we move on and accept this.
Okay, let's move on because Steve isn't here, so we should just move on. I agree with you, Chris. Thank you,
Okay.
Jennifer.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the work you put in on that, Jennifer.
All right, thank you. Have a great day.
Okay, next on the agenda is 124 Elm Street. Do we have someone here?
Yes, we do. Looks like Deb Keller from Merrill Engineers. Can you hear me, Deb? Oh, you're muted.
Slow this morning. There we go. Sorry
There you
about that. Computer was a little sluggish this morning. I believe that Pat Finn from Delbrook requested this meeting, but I guess I'm glad I'm here because I don't see anybody else on.
He said he was unable to attend.
Oh, all right. He didn't let me know that. I apologize. I can show a quick sketch of what they're looking to do. And I know Brian was aware as well. And please correct me, Brian, if I misrepresent anything. But if I could share a screen, it might be helpful for everybody to follow along, if that's okay.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay, I just made you a co-host.
thank you. Let's see.
This is
Yes.
124.
So can you see the plan now on the screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. I have a big zoom on my other screen, so I wasn't 100% sure if you were seeing it. So this is with regard to the 124 property, which is the larger of the two that are being currently constructed. 87 Elm is on the left-hand side of the plan. So we have two structures. We call this one 124 North. This built dwelling or building structure is 124 South. So I believe it has to be about a year and a half ago now. The site was permitted through the town, and it was anticipated that two new services would be installed in the street when some water improvements were being done in Elm Street. And at that time, a 4-inch ductile iron fire service and a 2-inch domestic fire service were being installed. The intention was to tie those in and service these buildings. It's come to our attention through the MEP for these two buildings that those two services wouldn't fully support the two buildings. And so we were looking at an alternative layout. So we do have down on the southerly portion here a 6-inch service existing that a new hydrant would be taken off of. So the question I believe we were looking for from the MEP, which I believe he has agreed from his side anyways, that we could service the fire protection for both of these buildings off of this 6-inch that comes in as for the hydrant with the proposed hydrant on the southerly portion of the property. Obviously, this is just a sketch, but the intent would be to bring up the service and tap off for both fire protection to each building. And then that would allow us to use these two services. The 4-inch would service the larger 124 North, and the 2-inch would service 124 South structure for domestic purposes. So that's what we were looking to try to do. This would eliminate having to come in and tap a new service off. We'd be using those 3 existing taps that are already currently on site.
I have our distribution foreman here.
Sure.
And he has some thoughts in regards to using that 6-inch for hydrant for anything.
Sure.
So, Brian, are you there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Brendan.
I was I'm just throwing this out there, but you got the 4-inch. They need a 4-inch domestic, we were told. Right?
Yeah, so I
So-
guess.
Can they, it looks like they're gonna have to tap another 6-inch off of like Stockbridge near there or Margin.
Right, so I agree, Brendan. So the I guess the main thought, and I don't know if you were on the email chain, but the my main thought is that best practice is a separate domestic and a separate fire service for each building tapped off of the street. That said, right now there's a, the 6-inch where there's the proposed hydrant, and then there's an existing 2-inch and I think a 4-inch coming into the site.
Correct.
But one thing on taking the fire service off of that hydrant is, I've seen it before in distribution systems where if, you're flushing the hydrant, these guys do flushing every year. It does cause transient pressure waves in fire systems now, whether they're flooded or not flooded, usually have a pressure sensor, and it does kind of mess things up, lead to false alarms, things like that. The other thing is running a fire service for one building through another building, I don't think is a good idea, because if that building burns to the ground, you could potentially lose the fire service for the other building. And those were my main thoughts.
Okay, a thought that I had, looking at the plans here, I don't know how anyone has ever determined that only one service could go into this entire project, since you had one service for one building, and this is a subdivision, so you have 2 separate buildings, and it should be 2 separate services according to our regulations.
I apologize. I'm not the original engineer, so I'm picking this up during construction. So I'm going off of the design plans that were approved a year and a half ago. That's why we're actually before you today. We wanted to talk this through. This is what we have to work with, and we're just trying to figure out the right way to do it. And we were trying to utilize the services that were existing currently, but if as Brian mentions, if we want to have obviously separate domestic is straightforward, and if we can't tap off the 6-inch and feel comfortable with that servicing the 2 buildings for domestic, I would agree that we have to have 2 more fire protection services, and I will let Delbrook know that.
All right, no, it's not 2 more fire protection. You have a fire protection and the other service for the building, and you need the water and the fire protection service for the new building.
Yes, we have 2 services right now, a 4-inch and a 2-inch. The intent was, from my understanding from the information provided from the MEP, those would be able to service the domestic for each building. The 124 needs at least, I believe, a 3-inch or 3.5, so that would be serviced by the 4-inch. And then the 2-inch would service 124 South, and that was what the MEP told us were required. So now we were just trying to sort out our fire services for both structures. And knowing that we had the 6-inch and the hydrant on the south side of the building, we were just looking to see if there was a way that we could utilize that. But as stated, it sounds like we want to keep that separate and we'll have the 2 domestic for both buildings and then provide 2 new services for the fire protection or some combination thereof. Yes.
You need a whole new hookup fee for the new building.
Yes, I think
You
that's what they,
understand that?
yeah, that's what they're gonna have to do.
Okay.
Because it sounds like what you're saying to me is tying into the 6-inch to minimize tying in and creating a new curb cut would require us to create new curb cuts or water tie-ins, connections.
Mhm.
Yep. Does that sound correct, Brian, from the discussions previously had with Delbrook?
Yeah, the question on the 6-inch, what is that existing right now?
6-inch. It's
And
an
what-
existing,
Is it an existing fire hydrant or is it,
It's a new hydrant.
okay,
There was a new hydrant that was installed when we did the Elm Street project.
and
okay,
it, it looks like it was a 6-inch service that went farther into the site. I apologize. I do not know what it serviced, if it serviced the
That was the old one.
old building.
Yeah.
I mean-
Fire slash domestic.
It-
No, now.
to reduce, I mean, the cuts, I mean, I think that one servicing the south building, if you had a fire service off of that 6-inch, servicing the smaller south building would probably work, but the north building going off
Have
of
a
that, probably, it's too much. I think it makes sense to just come in off the street from that side.
For 124, north, yes, okay.
Or, and I think that's what you were alluding to, Brendan. Is that right?
Yeah, right over there. In margin. Somewhere over there.
Could
Okay. Now,
we
it
come,
sounds like from what, excuse me, Brendan, you were just saying that this 6-inch here was the fire suppression going into the old building?
No,
And
she was looking at an older one. The fire.
older
hydrant
one.
Is a new
What,
one.
what was that older line? Where did that
That
older
used
line?
to feed the hotel and it's domestic. It was all in one. You can't do that anymore. That was. done in
Okay,
number
so
before.
basically, what we're saying is that they had needed a new hookup for this building that hasn't been paid for, that our water customers paid for, and they need a new hookup for the other building. When this new hookup was done, that we had the blast on Elm Street, that was specifically done for this project. It was not to replace the line that went into the old hotel as we were previously told. Correct?
Yes, it was put in for the hydrant.
Let's put in for-
Where the anchor used to be,
Okay,
if you're there.
no, but the 2 new lines that came in, were they existing for the hotel?
No,
No,
those are new.
those are new. Because I remember the previous engineer told us that they were the existing line going into the hotel.
Was it to replace the old?
Yeah, so I mean,
Yeah.
everything out there is new. When you say what's new, what's old, the entire water main was done a couple of years ago, so all services are all new. And I don't know if it's a semantic thing you guys are going through, but there was service to that building.
It was
I think
off the fire line.
Yeah, there was,
There was a 6-inch line that did, and the domestic was tapped off it out in the parking lot.
Yeah, there was only one line going into the
Right,
building. We
6-inch, did
provided a
everything.
second line going
Weren't
into the
separate.
property gratis for this customer. Correct? Yes,
yes, it was split.
yes, the old line was split. That property required 2 lines. There was only 1 line going in. So the property was demolished and a new property is in its place. And when the new water main was put in on Elm Street, 2 new lines were put into this property to replace only 1 line that had been there before. And now we're looking to put 2 more lines into this property, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So we have to figure out what the fees are for this work from our perspective.
Just
Correct.
one thing, Lee, I think what we were just saying is that I think the 6-inch on the south side could feed the south building. I think, you know, in reality, we need 1 more new tap for the north building for a fire service from the Margin Street side.
But Brian, what we're basically saying is, if this were a different property that only had 1 line going in and 2 buildings going up, we would be charging connection fees appropriate for what is needed, correct? That's all I'm asking.
So if what you're getting at is where we were 5 years ago, there was 1 service going into the building, and where we are, when it's all done, there will be 4 taps coming into this facility. Yes, I think that's what you're
Yeah.
going for.
So this is
but-
what we have to do, is figure out what the fees are for the taps.
I don't think that's the point of this particular line of
No,
conversation.
I know,
I
but I'm
believe-
just saying this is what we have discussed too, just to make sure we are all on the same page, and before Brendan goes off and Brian goes off, that we're
Right.
discussing, that's all. So we know
so-
that we're all set on what we have to get done.
So if we allow the existing hydrant line to be used as fire service for the south building, all they would need is additional connection for fire service for the north building. So that's the guidance that we're giving the owner.
And I appreciate that. I had one quick question. Knowing that for 124, all of the utilities come into this portion of the building, is there any concern with maybe having another tap coming off of Elm here, or should we come through do you think there's a requirement or a need that you would like us to come from Margin? Because we would have to go,
It doesn't matter.
excuse me?
Brendan said it wouldn't matter either
Okay,
side.
great. All right, thank you.
As long as there's room there.
Well, thank you. I think that's very helpful. I can pass that information back on to the development team.
Okay,
Real quick, Brian, are we gonna lose that hydrant though? We gotta
No,
think.
I think
You know-
that the hydrant remains in place. Is it right? Deb?
Yes, yep.
Okay. That's all, we don't lose that.
Yeah, I think that's critical for fire protection and for your flushing.
Yeah. Just in case we ever lose that main, they have hydrant down the road, so. All right,
Okay,
good enough.
Well, thank you for your time, and I appreciate all of the input.
thanks,
Thank
Deb.
you, Deb.
All
thank you, Deb.
Have a nice day.
You too.
Okay, now next is the review of connection fees. Apparently, they were never charged a connection fee for this property at all, from what I understand. Is that correct, Brenda?
No, they were not.
No? They were not charged a connection fee.
No,
They always had a fire. and
they
a
always
domestic.
had a fire line with the domestic off of it.
That's
So
right.
when they were going by and renewing everything, it was decided to separate them, knowing that this project was going on.
Okay, and in order to do this, they had to get a new, 2 new lines put in a new location that required a great deal of blasting because they went through ledge. And it cost us a considerable amount of money to do that for the project. So, but, okay, I guess a deal was worked out with the former engineer and the developers. But now we have this other situation where it is basically a new connection. We have another building here. It would be
It's
as
gonna
though
be 2 new connections, Lee.
2 new connections, yeah. It's
Yeah,
2 new-
we'll have to, you guys will, this will have to be looked at in that spreadsheet that Jason came up with based on flows. I think the sewer does the same thing.
Okay,
So I would rather talk to Brian about it.
Oh, I mean, I just want to, this is just a general discussion now that we are going to be looking at the connections and how to deal with these type of projects. Because we have the one on Pleasant Street, we have the one where the gas station is going, being demolished next to Red Lion. So this is why I brought it up. We can't use the standard connection fee that we use like on James Lane.
Correct. When it's a multi-unit, there's a Excel spreadsheet, something or other. That factors in usage along, that's, you know, projected for that building.
Mhm. So this is what we're gonna have to get set up in the next, I'd say, couple months, because we have these other projects coming up.
I would just recommend, so this site specifically, based on what you've done for fees and what you think and what's going to be done, I would recommend, drafting a memo and sending it to the developer. But just going forward, we have the same conversation on the sewer commission side, is just making sure that your rules and regulations are updated to charge fees according to, how you practice today. 'Cause,
Okay, well,
sewer side, it
we
was,
tried
they updated the regs. I know you guys are more recent than that, but it's back up to charge, how you practice.
Okay, but we did do that when we did 390 Chief Justice Cushing for that new building. And I don't think we've ever gotten that into our regs.
Okay, so that's just my point, keep it on the radar going forward, just to look at your regs and
Yeah.
update them. It says if there's a new development, you shall do such and such.
Because we already have this in practice for one development. So we have to make sure that we are making comparisons between these new type of developments in Cohasset, since this is new territory for us.
There is a breakdown on page 41 of the rules and regs. I don't know if it's been updated online yet. And it's based on meter size. So you should probably want to look at that at some point.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to say, basically you have to charge what's in your rules and regs. And if it's not according to what you think you should be charging, then just update the regs accordingly.
Say, well, but the problem is too, based on meter size, what size meters are they getting in these buildings? Brenda, for the condominiums.
Say that again?
All right, if it's based on meter size, they have individual meters for the condos.
I don't know
Yeah.
anything. I know that our backflow guys spoke to one of the contractors or engineers in regards to what size meters would be needed, if there's going to be a master meter. I don't know all the specifics to that.
The 4-inch domestic, he was saying.
Brendan was saying it's a 4-inch domestic,
That's what he said, I remember.
but I don't know all the specifics. We'd have to look at all of that.
See, but I thought we determined that every condominium was going to have its individual meter.
That's what we were told.
Yes.
So this is why we have to look at this. So we had to all sit down and get our thoughts together. We'll do that next. Did Chris leave us by chance?
I don't see him here. Maybe he dropped out somehow.
I don't know. Unfortunately, if he did that, can we
The
continue?
meeting's over.
Mike, do you want to say anything? Mike, you're on mute.
No, I'm just listening with interest. Thank you.
All right, yes. Just to give you an update, Mike, we decided we didn't need any warrant articles.
Oh, good.
Because
Okay.
we had the water main replacements from the town meeting the year before, and we were authorized for 2.6 million to borrow. So we're going to be working on, Brian said we're going to be working on the Main Street from Red Lion down towards the church, and then we're going to do Atlantic Ave from Cunningham Bridge to the beach.
Okay, and that South Main work in that heart of the village, does that include replacing the temporary water main that ruptured?
No, so that water main, the break repair is a permanent installation. We're gonna carry on the south side of that, where they installed an isolation valve. And go southward to the church from there. And then the remainder of South Main Street to the border is all new.
Great, thanks.
Is there any information you need for any upcoming meeting you have?
I don't, as long as we don't have any capital spending coming up for annual town meeting. I certainly will report that in. We have our capital budget meeting tonight. And just as an update, I'll let everyone know that it looks like the Water Commission is in good shape for this annual town meeting.
Yeah,
Yep,
Mike, so you know, we've had a couple of meetings internal with the water operators and distribution guys and commissioners, and we're prioritizing what should be on the top of the list for water main replacements and using the appropriation from, I think it was either the last town meeting or the one prior.
It was the original
Using that
town
up before they go for more.
Right.
Yeah.
I think
It was
our
the original meeting.
our focus is going to be any need for increases for water use going forward for any infrastructure. Because capital budget is keeping any kind of, be it tax increase or water or sewer increase in mind as we look at the town and the taxpayers and ratepayers. It's all coming out of our citizens' pocket, and we want to be mindful of any big expenses coming up that's going to affect how much we pay for our services, including utilities.
Now, Lee, aren't you having me increase the town's fees now, going to 2-tier?
Yes.
Was that
We
voted on?
we voted on that 2 years ago, and unfortunately, people in town hall said we didn't like your vote and didn't do it. And so we are going forward on it now because those people are no longer here.
Would that be something you were looking for, Mike?
I'm not sure I follow what Lee just said.
Okay, we voted
First,
unanimously.
before you go ahead, Lee, is
Mhm,
Chris
okay.
back?
No.
Okay, all right.
But Chris wasn't here.
All
2
right.
years ago,
So
we voted.
before you begin, Lee, let me
Mhm.
just tell you where I'm confused.
Go ahead.
My understanding is that we went to a 3-tier system,
Mhm,
3-tier pricing system.
Mhm,
And I thought those prices are in our current water bills. Am I right on that or am I wrong?
You're correct.
Okay, so what is it that was not followed by town hall?
Okay, town hall, all town buildings and the schools are only on tier 1,
I see. So you're referring to town buildings only.
only town buildings,
I
because
see.
we
Okay, I
voted
get it.
unanimously as a board twice to include them into tier 2 when we went into the new rate study. And 2 people in town hall said, we didn't like your vote and we're not going to do it. And they did things to make sure it didn't happen. But they're no longer here. And so we are going through with it
I
in
understand.
order to meet our expenses.
Okay,
And one other thing I want to bring up, the Department of Revenue has always said that we should be looking to increase our prices 2.5% a year to keep up with inflation.
okay.
And we hadn't been doing that because I don't know if you remember, about 10 years ago, we lowered our rates 10%.
I recall, yes, I know that whole discussion. Yep,
No, so
Okay.
the 2.5% increase that's in our rate study is not something that is extraordinary. It goes along with state guidelines.
okay.
Okay, since no one else is here, it looks like we are adjourning the meeting at 9:40.
Okay,
Is
thank
that
you.
it?